EDC back again with another knife video. This is a knife that sort of became famous, known as the Slyz Bowie, but actually it's called the Slyz Bowie. So this is the Spyderco Slyz Bowie, and obviously it's by Martin Swyss. Now, he's the same guy that did the Spidey Chef and the Techno 2, all those types of designs that Spyderco does. This was, I believe, based off a custom. You can actually see there's a video on YouTube with what the custom looked like by another YouTuber. In any event, the original Spyderco version of this was discontinued. It was stonewashed titanium with a mirror stonewashed blade. I actually like the look of the original a little bit better, but as Eric Lesser explained in one of his videos, when Spyderco discontinues a knife, it's done. It's not coming back. Now, the precursor to this coming back, so why is this back? Well, you saw the Veil Phoenix come back, right? And so when that came back, I noticed right away you had those red G10 handles, which were different from the white handles on the original. So at that point, I thought it's a possibility this knife could come back, and Knifejoy did in fact bring it back. But obviously, when I thought it would come back, it wouldn't come back in the same style. That's exactly what happened. It came back with Knifejoy's sort of blue, the same thing it does on the Spidey Chef with that blue anodized titanium. And this is M390. The Spidey Chef is the LC200N on that. But they brought this back M390, which I think is an upgrade over the XHP on the original. It has the belt satin design, belt satin design, I should say, here, and you have this anodization here instead of the stone washing. All right, let's go ahead and I'm going to do a first impressions of this knife. I've only had it for maybe about 2-3 days at this point. It really just came out. But I wanted to give my first impressions, the good and the bad, what I like, what I don't like about it. And we'll do a full review at a later date. In any event, let's do some quick size comparisons on here. This is the Civivi Button Lock Elementum. It's a 3.5-inch knife, which is larger than the normal Civivi Elementums. This is the Civivi Brazen. And this is the Benchmade Claymore. I actually don't have any other knives with me. I'm at work at the moment, so I actually just going to roll with these as size comparisons. In any event, let's go ahead and talk about the good and the bad on this. So first of all, some of the good. Some of the good on this is the ano job on this actually looks really good. I wasn't a big fan at first when I saw that it was going to be blue. I really wanted the original stonewashed titanium, but I really like this. It does start out as a lighter blue, and then when you get your hand oils on it and everything, it does darken up a bit. So, but it'll darken up evenly if you just rub it around in your hands, and I think the color overall comes across pretty well. So, very happy about that. The blade on here, the belt satin, actually looks a lot better in person than it did on pictures. So I was pretty psyched to see that. You can see that belt satin here. It really does look very nice. Next, this is like you see here from the Taichung, Taiwan factory. They do excellent work, and frankly is probably the best facility for fit and finish that Spyderco uses. So you get excellent fit and finish here. Next thing, the ergonomics on this are surprisingly good. I did not expect this to be that good, but the ergonomics on here are excellent. I would say these are a solid 8.5 out of 10. The only thing that would make it any better are if it was really more contoured and rounded, sort of like an 80-10, but that's not what this knife was going for. The thin profile design is part of the design, and so I don't really have a complaint about that. It's just not as hand-filling as it could be, but as far as this dimension's perfect. It's almost a 10 out of 10 in this dimension right here. I have size large glove hands, just for reference. All right. Next thing, the access on here to the lock bar is excellent. Really, really nice cutaway here. It gives you really good access to the lock bar without impacting ergonomics. Sometimes on some knives, when you have too much access, this digs into your fingers. That's not a problem here on this knife, and so I definitely appreciate that. Next, the blade shape on this is pretty damn near perfect. You have a good amount of flat here, and you have a nice amount of belly here. It's actually reminiscent of a lot of different knives. It has that really quick upswept tip, not quite as dramatic as the Rat 1, but it still is pretty dramatic. but you still come to a nice point over here. It's not quite a Persian, so I appreciate that. It is not quite, though, really a Bowie. Just, they call it a Bowie knife, but you're going to get much more of a defined clip point, on a Bowie knife. Here you can see, yeah, they might have taken a tin snip or something and snipped it here in a straight line, but usually you get that curved snip, and that really defines what a Bowie is. I'll bring that up on another video, but when I have my XM18 Bowie, that's an excellent looking Bowie. So anyway, Google it for now, I guess. Next thing is the M390 on here is a great steel choice for this, because this is going to be a knife that you can just use, EDC and use. And M390 is one of the best steels for just regular EDC use. Although it gets a reputation for being somewhat a little chippy at times, it's not quite as chippy as S90V or S110V, and it still is a great balance of edge holding toughness, corrosion resistance, and ease of sharpening. So, just an excellent all-around steel, probably considered by a lot of people to be the best EDC steel. I still prefer a couple others for EDC, but a lot of people love M390 as the best EDC steel. Next thing on here is the clip. The clip is actually really nice. The design and shape of the clip I really appreciate. I do appreciate the fact that it is both right and left hand tip up carry. That's definitely a great thing as well. Next, the action on this is really nice. It's on washers, so it's not going to drop shut, as you can see, but it is super smooth coming out and going back in. Super smooth. It really reminds me a lot of the Spidey Chef as far as that goes. And you can still, even though you have only half of the hole exposed here, there's still plenty of room to Spidey flick it. So, you can definitely feel great about that. The jimping here is more defined because this isn't a stonewash blade than the original Swish Bowie, but it's just like Spyderco's jimping on a lot of other knives. It's pretty much perfect, not too aggressive, while definitely accomplishing the task of locking your hand in. There's also good jimping here on the backspacer, as you can see here, that follows the same pattern of the jimping that's over here. So your hand really locks in nicely on this blade, or on this handle, I should say. So all that is the good. The next, I should say, actually, is the size of this. The size of this is pretty damn near perfect. Probably one of the reasons Nick Shabazz likes the knife so much. So I definitely have to commend them on that as well. So that's pretty much the good. Let me go ahead and talk about the bad, because actually there's a good amount of bad on here. I didn't expect to be saying that. First and foremost, this pocket clip really should not be steel. It is steel. I went ahead and double checked with a magnet. I don't know why you're having steel against titanium. I've had, on my Spidey Chef, the clip would rock back and forth, and I can pull it up here and show you, sort of, it rocks back and forth, even when you tighten this down a little bit. Over time, what that does is it causes a whole bunch of scratching on the titanium scales, which, maybe on the lock side isn't such a big deal, but if you're a lefty and it's on the show side, if you ever go to sell the knife or anything, this is just going to be hugely scratched up over here. Frankly, they could have made this out of titanium or gone with something else. If you are going to go ahead and carry this, I'd probably suggest, if you don't mind it getting scratched up, it's not that big of a deal. But if you do mind it getting scratched up, I'd probably suggest going out and grabbing either a Lynch clip if you just want a regular titanium clip, or, the Rips Garage Tech clips actually look really nice on this thing. He specifically has some clips that are Damascus, and so check those out. I'm going to try to remember, I'll put a link to those clips below. They sell them at DLT Trading, and I'm a DLT affiliate. I'm not suggesting them because DLT sells them, because they, you can buy them in a couple other places too, and frankly, frankly, there's plenty of other options for clips, but that specific clip is just really nice in Damascus, and they'll, if they're out of stock right now, they'll probably have more at some point. Next thing I don't like about this is this G10 backspacer. So this G10 backspacer just feels like it was thrown on at the end. I don't really see a reason for it. It kind of takes away at the price point of the knife. I don't really get it. A lot of other knives in this price range are going to be using titanium backspacers or standoffs. I would have much preferred standoffs to this, you know, but a titanium backspacer would have been fine too. This is just kind of, it feels lazy to me. It feels like it was just an afterthought and they just sort of threw it on. So don't like that. Next thing I don't like is the lanyard hole. I know people like the lanyard holes. It's not really in the way, but you know, with all the other holes here and the cutouts for the wire clip and everything, and the screw here for that, there's just a lot going on in this area, and I kind of wish that hole wasn't there. Next thing is the price. I'm sorry, I lost my notes for a second. The price on this is $400, and frankly, this is really more like a $300 knife, right? The Spidey Chef itself is $234. It originally, I think, was around $190. You know, and with price creep and with everything with Spyderco, that's even gone up about $40. And you know, $234 is not terrible for the Spidey Chef. And frankly, you know, this is pretty much the same build quality as a Spidey Chef. I mean, the build quality is nice. I'm not degrading the build quality, but for $400, you've got a lot of other things, a lot of other knives in this price range that you're really competing against. You're competing against Chris Reeve. You're competing against, you know, some Striders. You know, you're competing against Hinders. You're competing against the Harsey folders. You're competing against a lot of other really, really good build quality brands out there that have just really, really solid pieces, and they're doing more here, you know, than this for the price. And frankly, this is almost twice as expensive as the Spidey Chef, and it really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The biggest thing I can say for this that it has over the Spidey Chef in build quality is that these scales are slightly contoured, whereas the Spidey Chef, I believe, is completely flat. So that's the biggest difference, I would say, there. And that might make it a little bit more expensive, but almost twice the price is a little ridiculous. Next, they really should have a lock bar stabilizer and lock bar insert on this. You know, even though the geometry over here is such that it works, over time this lock face is gonna wear down. You might get some blade play or lock rock, and that's not cool. In this day and age, Spyderco has other models where they, you know, use titanium and they use steel lock bar inserts. I have a Spyderco Military, I believe, that has a lock bar insert, you know, the titanium version of that. So they know how to do that. I don't know why they don't do that here, but it really, really should be here in this day and age. And not having it, I think, is a huge, huge missed opportunity. Overall, though, this is a good knife. You know, the secondary market is going to bear the price on this $400. So is it that bad? At the end of the day, probably no. But you know, there definitely is better stuff out there. If you're just, you know, out there and saying I want one knife and I've got $400 to spend, there are better knives for the $400. But you know, if you've got a bunch of knives and you want to own a Slyz Bowie, it's a good knife. And frankly, rather than sell this, you know, for a markup, which I could do, I'm gonna hold on to this. I'm gonna use it, and one of the reasons is the edge is pretty thin on here. I forgot to mention that in the good, but the behind the edge thickness is really good, and this really is a laser beam through cardboard. I've already, you know, cut some stuff with it and have been really, really impressed. So again, would I recommend this? Yeah, for sure, I would recommend it. Would I recommend it at a price of $400? A little less so. I'd still recommend it, but guys, don't get bilked on the secondary for it. If you're really going to pay $500, $600, $700 for it, just go buy a different knife. But other than that, this is a great knife. So I definitely want to make that known. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoy this. Again, this is First Impressions. I'll do a full review at some point. Thanks so much.